Hello, and welcome to Beginning Drawing with Miss Carrie. This month, we're going to make some robots. Let's get started. I'm just going to use a plain piece of paper and my number 2 pencil. Are you ready? So all this time we've been learning about shapes, and robots are really easy to make with your shapes. So think of any shape that you want. What is your robot going to do? What do you want it to do? What is its job? Because robots always have a job. Are they going to be picking up and moving things? Are they a light source? What is your robot going to do? So let's go ahead and get started making several different robots. The first one I'm going to make is a very simple square or cube robot. So we're going to start off with our square. Doesn't have to be a perfect square. We're just sketching. And we're going to make that cube just like we learned in that first video, where you have those two parallel lines at an angle, and then you connect them with that next parallel line that goes with the front, and then again on the side we do the same thing. So parallel lines at an angle. And the more you do this, the easier it gets to kind of be okay with just rough sketching what you're doing. Now that's the robot's head. So we also want a robot body, of course. So I'm going to make just a little tiny neck right here in the middle. And then we want the body. So I'm going to make his body a little bit wider than his head. And I want that neck to be right there in the middle. I don't want it to be right up to the edge because we're going to make it look 3D. So let's get our body going here. Again, those two angled parallel lines. He's not quite in the middle, is he? I'm going to have to shrink his body a little bit or widen it out. So we'll make it a little bit wider. And use our handy dandy eraser. That's what it's for. There we go. So now his body's a little bit wider than his head. And again, we're going to bring those lines down to make our cube. And connect that back just like that. So now we have his neck. I'm going to make it rounded at the bottom to make it look like it is a tube. Now he needs some legs. So I'm going to make tube legs. We're not going to get too complicated with our robots. And he needs some robot feet. So we're going to make some block feet. So I'm going to make a rectangle just below the tube. And we're going to have it go back past his foot. There's one, and again make that rectangle. And let's see, all of our lines are going this way, so you want to make sure that your rectangle is just a little bit further over, I think. There we go. Try to make them about the same size. Don't worry about your sketches at this point in time. There we go. Because you always have an eraser. There we go. Now he's got 2 feet. Now we need some arms. Let's see, what do I want my robot to be doing? I guess I want him to be picking things up, so he needs kind of a claw hand. So first, I'm going to make a circle, just like so, and don't worry, that can be erased. And we want his arm to come out, just like so. And we're going to put a nice grabby claw on his hand. So now we can erase the back of that circle and part of his body, which will make that nice and rounded. Now I also want him to have an arm over here, but here's the deal. We need to know where his side is. So what you can do is lightly sketch out where his side is. Where is it in conjunction to the rest of his body? I think it needs to be a little bit straighter. There we go. So now we know where his arm is supposed to be. And again, we're going to make that circle, just like so. And his arm is going to come out, just like that. And then curve around. And put on that nice clamp. But now we need to erase from inside the body. All right, here's where it gets fun. We are first going to shade our robot. So if you remember, one side is darker on the cube. So let's go ahead and shade that in. One side is light, so you don't need a whole lot of shading. In fact, let me get rid of some of my sketch marks here. So we're gonna just lightly shade the front of the body. And he needs a little bit of shading up here, but it's going to be even lighter. Down here he has a bit of a shadow because his head obviously is right on top of it. So we're going to do that. I'm going to take my shading wedge here and just smooth it out for ourselves. And if you don't have one of these shading wedges, you can certainly use just a Q-tip, the end of your finger, or a piece of tissue at the end of your pencil would work too. Alright, so we got the shading of those cubes down, but don't forget his feet. So darker on the one side, a little bit lighter up front here, and just a little bit of color, but remember it's under his body, so it can be a little bit darker as well. All right, So now we have all these cylinders and tubes to fill in as well. So remember, there's that lightest part right on one of the sides where the light is. So it doesn't have to be completely shaded in. Just makes it more rounded. Alright, same thing with the legs. So you shade right about there. You leave a line that's pretty white. And then you get really dark. Alright, same over here. A line that's not colored in. And then you get really dark. Okay. Let's use our shader and see how that turns out. Alright, he's looking shiny. Okay, now we got his arms to shade, and then we're going to add some detail. So his arms, because they're curved and shaped a little bit differently, we want the dark end to be underneath, because the sun doesn't generally get under your arms too much. So we want that space to be a little bit darker. And then we'll have kind of a middle part that's a little bit lighter. And then again, a little darker towards the end here. And you'll see that when you smooth that out, it'll look really nice. And if you get too dark on that line, there we go. Just use your eraser. That's what it's for. Alright, let's do the same on this other one. Erase any sketch marks you might have. And again, really dark underneath. And then a little bit lighter. There we go. And on this one, I think we want the line to be right there. There we go. All right, let's start adding some detail. So I want my robot to have some antenna. So I'm going to make some little circles here, and you can add as much detail as you'd like. shading backwards here. There we go. All right, now he's got 2 antennae. I think I'm going to color those in. All right, and I also want him to have little ears, ear sensors. So there's one. You won't be able to see the one on the other side. And he needs some way to see. A way for us to understand what he's saying. All right. I think that looks pretty good so far. There we go. And he probably has a control panel, maybe a button. All right, and I think just to show that his arms are flexible, I'm going to put some lines down his arms. All right, we can do the same thing with his legs. All right, let's give his hands another look here. There we go. I'm going to color that in. And then maybe shine it up here. Just like so. We'll do the same thing to the other one. We want it to look like that there's a way to grip like that. Now you want to define your lines just a little bit. So if they're not super defined, just a really thin line will help define your robot just a little bit more. Doesn't have to be super thick. Alright, our robot number 1 is done. Alright, let's make another robot. Let's make this one a cooking robot. That sounds like a good plan. So for this one, I think I'm going to make an oval shaped head. And in order to make kind of like the cube, so it's three-dimensional, we're just going to extend out this way and bring our second oval around like this. Just like that. And this time I think I'm going to give it some square eyes. Maybe a button or a light nose. Again, some place to communicate. This is just a rough sketch. All right. I'm going to give this one more of a square body, just like we had before, but it's going to be a little slightly bigger because it's going to be a cooking machine. Alright, we'll make it so it's even with the neck here. Sometimes you have to readjust what you're doing. And maybe we want this one to clean as well. So maybe we make its bottom more like a vacuum. All right. Let's make the oven first. Well, actually, let's do some shading first. And for this one, we're going to have it dark on the side here, leading up to the head. It can be shiny up there, and then just very light on the face. Again, dark underneath the head, but not too dark. And then this side will be much darker. And then the front, very light. Just like so. And for our vacuum at the bottom, we're going to have it shiny right there in the center. right, so far so good. Let's put our details on. So this one, I think I'm going to redefine the face a little bit. Shade in that neck area. All right, there we go. So I'm going to add one antenna at the top. And again, we're going to shade that just like you would a sphere. All right. There we go. And square eyes. And a button. Nose. Maybe it lights up. All right, so this is going to be an oven. There we go. And we're going to shade that in. There we go. It doesn't have to be even Steven at all. Put in a little window. Maybe there's a knob. And a button panel. maybe there's a drawer. And then for the vacuum, and then of course we need some arms. We have an arm. There's one arm, and again remember we need to figure out approximately where that other arm would start from. All right. I made this other arm a mixer. So let's define that just a little bit more. There we go. There we go. All right. there's another robot. What other kinds of robots would there be? Maybe there is just one that carries things. Maybe there's one that lights things up. Maybe it's full of light bulbs. What will you build? I look forward to seeing your robots. Go ahead and email me some pictures to the email address right there, and I'll see you again next month.